everybody, welcome to MG Life Hacks. I'm here from a Myasthenia Gravis patient perspective. This is my second video I'm attempting to do in one day. I'm feeling ambitious, but my vocal cords are holding out, so I'm going for the gold. Plus it's the end of the day, so I don't have anything to really do after this, thankfully. Anyway, for anybody just hopping on, myasthenia gravis is a neuromuscular disease that affects your ability to use your muscles, both voluntary and involuntary, and overexertion. It causes extreme weakness. So it's fairly easy to overexert, which can be really frightening, which you want to avoid. So today I wanted to talk about accommodations, since I'm pretty sure most people who have, not all, probably, most folks will be faced with having to ask for accommodations at some point during the diagnosis, maybe even before. Accommodations are something that you ask for from your employer to allow you to work. And it's something the employer has to get involved with to a certain extent, because what someone with accommodations request is asking for is something outside or slightly outside the usual process or procedure that someone else would typically ask for. An example is, one accommodation that I made with my employer was to have a full remote position. It is very, very physically demanding for me to get up for work, get dressed, get ready, get to the car, get the car to the office, get from the car into the office, walk to the desk, walk to the break room, it's a lot. And especially if someone, calls you over and they think it's no big thing, because for them it might not be, but for me, no, I cannot do that, unfortunately. I wish I could. There are different things that I ran into when I was asking for accommodations, so I wanted to offer tips to help you carry it through, or at least feel more empowered to. What you want to do is you want to keep track of everything that you are asking for, and keep track of when you are asking for things and who you asked. It can get complicated. It can be a little scary. It can be different, just because for me it was a very new experience. There's not really somebody that can walk you through or do it for you or show you how it's done. I will do my best. So what I did was I didn't tell my employer first thing, this is my diagnosis. You don't have to. I chose to come out with mine because I felt pretty well supported. I've done that before with other diagnoses and it did not go well. But this one I was fairly willing to, what, it's going to be what it's going to be, and I'm just going to note down everything. The reason I say keep track of your requests is because sometimes you'll have to pursue it a little bit. Sometimes people just don't know what they're doing when you're asking them for accommodations, and they just are overwhelmed. They don't know how to deal with it appropriately. They don't know what to say, so they get nervous and say the exact wrong thing, which has happened. What you can do is, when you're asking for an accommodation, think of it as a business. It is also not an option. So you are not really asking for accommodations. You're more just telling them and communicating clearly what you need in order to do your job. Not really asking for permission in a way. Like how I approached mine was, I took note of my symptoms. I took note of the challenges that I was having during the workday, getting my work done. And a lot of the drains were the extensive training that I was doing on camera and, speaking for extended periods without a break. I physically couldn't do it anymore, which is really scary because, that's part of my job description is being able to train others. And I still can, which is fantastic, but it comes with limits. I can't train someone for more than an hour at a time, but I can take a break and they can take a break too. It's training the trainee. It's kind of exhausting for them too, but that accommodation allowed me to keep my present job because I can still train. I'm still able to train, but under those conditions where I was training people for hours at a stretch, no, I can't, at least not right now. The other thing that I had asked for was a 40-hour work week, which is really scary because in big companies, general culture depending, the pressure, an unspoken pressure, is to work as long as is needed to get the job done. But the workload that I was experiencing was far beyond that, which is totally unachievable. It's unsustainable. And it just makes the illness so much worse when you're stressed out about losing your job. So after taking note of those symptoms and what was making it hard for me, I talked with my physician and said, you know what, I'm going to ask my employer for a 40-hour work week, which, I think is reasonable. I also checked the ADA, or, check up on Americans with Disabilities Act. Do some research, do some homework, empower yourself to figure out, okay, exactly what are my rights and how can I ask for them and how can I let my employer know I need this and that it's a medical necessity. It's not a choice. It's not because of anything else. It's I need these tools in order for me to do my job or keep my job. As long as it's not, radically changing the entire business. Generally speaking, the bigger the company, the easier it should be for them to work with you or, figure out, okay, well, what can we get for you and when can we get it here? Or, if it's like in my case at that point, it was just, oh, you need a 40-hour work week. Okay, in a full remote position. Okay, approved. Very, very quick, very easy. It does not always go that way. But it also depends on your delivery. What I opted to do this round, what I had done previously with different employers, is have a sit-down face-to-face. These are the accommodations that I'm needing at this time. I'll be happy to provide a physician's note to human resources. And, you can divulge your illness or not. It is entirely up to you. You do not owe it to anybody besides maybe a third-party accommodations administrator. You don't have to divulge your diagnosis if it's important to you to keep it private. You don't want to come in there entitled, like, I am going to get this. And just, these are the things that I'm needing. I really, I'm so excited to be a part of this team and I want to keep being a part of this team. Right now, I'm having some medical challenges and I really appreciate some understanding. And because I know that, you want to work with me on this, these are the accommodations that I need. If you're not sure if what you're asking for is a reasonable accommodation, you can talk with your physician if they have a lot of patients with your similar diagnosis, they could probably tell you maybe, and if they can't, they'll just tell you they can't, if what they think you're asking for is generally reasonable. Will it help you with your illness? You can also consult an attorney. Generally, an employment attorney will be able to to give you some kind of idea, you might have some kind of like consultation fee, which for peace of mind and just trying to, hammer things out might be a worthwhile investment. I went that route after having several bad experiences. And she was able to give me some tips and pointers also, which were fantastic. Because sometimes when you're in it and you're wrapped up in trying to manage this illness, and it's stressful because the conditions at work are not ideal for your illness, it's a little overwhelming. So sometimes having an outside opinion that's a professional opinion can really help a lot, especially for peace of mind when you go to your employer and you say, I really need these things in order to work more effectively or efficiently, or, just work in some cases like mine. What I do recommend is also following up. Follow up every few days. Seriously, every few days. And any excuse or response that you get that is not getting you what you need or approving it, find out why, find out who is holding things up, and offer to reach out to them directly. All these things take time. They do. They absolutely take time. So when can I expect an approval? What's the timeline here? Because it's a necessary thing that you need in order to do your job. It's also your right. So you might have different managers that have no experience with it. Whatever the deal is, whatever the problem is, it is not really your problem, but you can help try and steer them through. Who are we waiting for an answer on so I can get approval? Reach out to them directly in writing. Try and get everything in writing. And if you can't, follow up the conversation with a per our conversation email. Keep records of who you speak with and when. Keep records of what was said and by whom. Especially with the per our conversation emails, what those will do is it will allow you, going back to figure out, okay, well, what's my next step here? I've asked this person in writing and this person in writing. And the reason you want to keep it in writing is in the event that you have to escalate something, like I've communicated to my manager first, and then her manager, and then human resources. And I didn't really give any of them the option of having one person left out. All of them were involved in the conversations because I wanted a one and done kind of approach. And like I said, like my current employer didn't really take long. Previous employers or other experiences, it's taken months for them to get things approved, like ergonomic equipment set up, which is just excruciatingly painful. And I don't want you having any of those experiences. But hopefully what is also communicated to your employer with putting everything in writing is that you're serious. The fact that you're putting it in writing, especially with per our conversation emails, also lets them know that you are serious. And it also helps avoid miscommunication or misunderstandings or misinterpretation, which are terms that can be loosely used. Oh, I didn't understand. Oh, okay. Per our conversation. Thank you for sharing it. You didn't understand the initial request. I'd like to repeat my request for these accommodations, and I need to know a timeline as this could potentially impact my health negatively. Let them know. It's important. Don't try and scare anybody, but just let them hey, I need this in order to do my job. And I know that you want to be able to do this too. And I know you want to be able to help and support me. So let's do this. Let's figure it out. Let's all meet in a room. Let's all talk about this. And then after the meeting where you have that meeting with them, I need this. I really need this. Per our conversation to all attendees of that meeting. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your help in supporting me with this at this time. I'd like to repeat my request for status, and or as I understand it, you told me that I can expect an update or approval by X date. Don't be shy about asking, though. Some people are embarrassed. I was initially, way back when. What are they going to think of me? What's going to happen? Whatever does happen, do your best to learn from it. Just take notes of what happened and why it might have happened. Chalk it up to other people not understanding how to do their side of things, and learn from that experience. I hope you don't have a negative experience. But if you keep everything in writing and communicate a lot with email on what you need, you don't have to go into why you need it. You do have to be, communicative to a certain degree, but you don't have to go into your diagnoses or your specific symptoms, unless it will add value to your request. Like, I was open with my diagnosis, like, hey, I got myasthenia gravis, and it's really hard for me to train people nonstop all day, every day. I just can't speak that long nonstop. I need some breaks. It might put them in a position to be able to sympathize a little bit more if they understand the illness itself. And mine's just extreme muscle weakness. In some cases, I obviously completely understand not wanting to share the diagnosis, but you will have to share to a certain degree why you need the thing that you need, especially if it involves changing the format of something like a floor plan, or like if you need wheelchair access and the meeting room that they have it on is on like a raised platform and there's no ramp. Do you really want me in that meeting room? Because if you do, you need to put a ramp there. But like I said, the bigger companies, it shouldn't be a big deal. It'll probably take them, some time to put that ramp in. But like I said, don't be afraid to ask. Because if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. Just as infuriating and frustrating as some of my experiences were, take the high road. Just ask for things and put it simply, and no matter what individual or personality is in the room with you, just let them understand this is a medical necessity and what you're asking for is not unreasonable. I did have an experience once where my manager said, well, what does that mean to me? Well, doesn't really mean anything to you. Just communicating the accommodations that I need. That was a per our conversation email after that. I'm like, okay, per our conversation, you're not understanding how this or what this means to you. I'd like to invite human resources to try and, help hash this out. Simply put. Or when I had asked for a full remote position due to my illness from another employer, it was that it was going to be a distraction in the office because other coworkers that were not able to work full-time remotely would be upset. And I said, well, that's not really something I can help you with, but human resources might be able to. This is what I'm asking for because it's a medical necessity. And then the manager asked me to come forward with, telling the group that I had a serious medical illness that necessitated this accommodations request. And I said, no, No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And that was at that time. At this time, it's a different time in my life. But I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. What I'm asking you for is an accommodations, list. I'm asking for this list of things. How you accomplish that is not really something that I can support you with. Excuse me. So that was an interesting experience too. But I hope that some of these tips might help you. I do plan on coming up with a list of different tips and pointers. But don't be afraid to ask for the things that you need, especially in order to work. Because your employer, if they're a really good employer, they'll be able to see that, hey, they're asking because they want to keep working. And we want to keep them. And what they're asking for is reasonable. So, okay. It should not be a big deal. It really shouldn't. Thankfully, right now with my current employer, it is not. It's not a big deal. That's the way it should be. That's the way I hope it is for you. It's not uncommon for people with illnesses like this to run into all kinds of confrontations. But like I said, if that happens to you, and it happened to me, try your best to learn from it. And if you want to put content out there on how you dealt with it and, how you got other people involved to support you, go for it. Because that's who I got some support from, was other content creators, where they shared their experiences and I learned from those as well, how to navigate through a lot of this stuff. But I hope this helps you out in some way, shape, or form. And I hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.